But I think it can also be a bit of a trap, because if you become successful doing something you don't want to do, then the only prize is that you have to keep on doing that in order to stay relevant in the way that you've kind of found purchase, or you stop doing it and then you have to start again anyway. I forgot that I had applied for a state grant for a little bit of money to like do PR for a release. Just forgot about it because they were supposed to assess it midway through last year and their assessment was delayed. So I forgot about it. And then the beginning of this year, I just got this email saying, congratulations, your application's been approved. Here's the money. And I was like, oh, shit. You can bang your head against the wall for years on end with a particular project and it doesn't really help. And you think it does, and you think if I just keep smashing away at this, an answer will emerge, but it doesn't. The fist that grips the answer just grips tighter the more you try to pull it out, because, of course, you're contending with yourself. The creative process is a mirror of yourself.
All right, well... But no, super excited to chat to you again. I was listening back to our last chat, which happened to be nearly 2 years ago to the day, funnily enough. We're like four or 5 days off. And I think for both Cam and I, it was one of, it sticks out as a really insightful and great conversation that we've had. So it was very,
I'm
very
stoked
exciting
to hear that. I remember really enjoying it. Yeah, that was a great chat, man. Thanks for having me, Dan. Thanks for having me again.
No worries. It's an absolute pleasure.
It was just a phone call last time too, wasn't it?
It was.
No, we had video.
Did we?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I remember your beautiful faces. I was sat up the other end of the room, though. Yeah.
We did. No, we did, because Cam mentioned the setup that was in the background actually in the conversation.
I can remember it now. Yeah.
And you had a bunch of 5-year-olds over for Halloween.
Yeah, that's right. That's happening again. In a couple of days' time. Oy vey, yeah. Oh, man. Good memory. Well, they're Halloween. 7 now. They're 7 years old. That's all that's changed.
And that's probably, at that age, Halloween's a bigger event for them now than what it was when they were 5.
Oh yeah, it's a serious deal. It's a serious economic event as well. And I live on a street where it's like, it's taken very seriously. And when we first moved in here, I thought, it'll be a nice, sweet way of like, put out some treats, get to know some of the neighborhood kids. We had like a bowl of candy and I put my son out on the street, who at the time was 4. And I was just in no way prepared for the immensity and intensity of the crowd. And so my little boy's sitting out there with the bowl and there's like, he sees all these kids coming and he just puts the bowl down and goes inside, because once they start coming in, there's literally hundreds and hundreds of people on the street. And it was just like the candy disappeared in about 5 minutes. And so he was just like, I'm out of here. So we went inside and like locked the door. And the kids, but we've got the decorations up. So there's kids banging on the door. And I peek out the shutters. And this is not a word. I know this sounds like I'm turning it up, but there's kids. Like our front veranda was packed with children all the way down the stairs that lead onto the street. And there's kids out on the street as well. And then they're all their parents. There's a crowd of maybe 150 people right out the front of our house and hundreds more teaming down. I was like, Jesus, we've made a massive mistake here. Since then, we've never put the decorations up again. We just go up and down the street with everyone else.
Because you're Sydney base?
Yeah.
So I imagine Halloween would hit different in Sydney. It's so vexed here on the Central Coast. Some people are like, some people are, in your community Facebook groups, some people are passionately against it. Some people are passionately for it. And then a lot of people are just kind of indifferent. So every kind of 7th house, I reckon, has some decoration up.
Yeah. Well, see, where I live on the street, we all live in terrace houses. So you could hit like 200 houses in a couple of blocks. And the terrace is like every probably 3rd or 4th has got a decoration up. So it's just bonkers. It's like, it's really intense. I'm really pleased when it's finished and we can take the Halloween decorations down and just put like the traditional gods back up again with the Christmas decorations. But take the pagan stuff down and start putting like peace to the world, joy and Noel, all that kind of shit up again. I'm like, bring that on.
It's right. My wife is fully into Halloween. Like, it's her favorite holiday, and I've grown up never really trick-or-treating or having any major interest in Halloween. So I was like, oh, it's more of an American thing. But over time, like, it has certainly become super popular over here as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it's another way to sell a bunch of stuff, man. Like, it's just like... everything's Kmart. The street is a sea of like Kmart decorations, Kmart outfits, and Kmart lollies. They're fucking loving it this time of year. It's another Mother's Day for them. Yeah.
Well, it rolls on, right? Because they've got, Father's Day is probably largely a non-event for a lot of those places. They might sell the odd, chocolate and that sort of stuff.
No one cares about that.
Exactly. But Halloween and Christmas almost back to back. It's a big time of year for all the retailers.
It definitely is. And let me tell you, I've sat in on some of these conversations, like in my day job where I take notes for, or I take visual notes because I'm a visual artist. I take these visual notes. I've done it forever. I take visual notes. I make murals and things for like every industry. Like from healthcare, prisons, retailers, honestly, like airlines, banks, you name it, whatever. And I've worked as well for these food and retail chains and stuff like that. And they plan their year around these events. Like they have very big strategic mandates to absolutely bring every bit of juice they can out of, depending on what they're selling, these major retail milestones throughout the year. And everything in the stores and it's all oriented towards like these key touch points to sell shit. We've got Black Friday coming up as well. I was like, this is as a musician as well. I don't know if we're recording yet or not. I'm just rambling, but
we're recording.
Sorry.
It's good. This is what we aim for. So please go on.
My opening gambit talking about like retail and Halloween is not very exciting, but as a musician, for example, like you got Black Friday coming up and like, the plugins and all that sort of stuff and gear goes on sale 57%. And it's like such a temptation to go, this is the time I'm going to dig in and fork out and upgrade everything like that. And it's true, like you can get your savings and everything, but, and if you're going to buy anything, like if there's something some tool that you really need that you're waiting to buy, like never pay full price for anything. It's just a good rule of thumb. Never pay full price for anything. Wait, because you're always being gouged. So wait till they put it down to regular normal price, which is sale price. Buy it then. But if you don't need to spend like $2,000 on plugins. You don't need to do it. So these sales come around. It's like I have a policy. If I don't buy anything, like I haven't bought a piece of gear since 2015. I said to myself, never again. And so I bought like 3 plugins in the last 10 years, not a single piece of gear. I've just been given a whole bunch of like cutting edge, top of the line keyboards from Roland, because I use old Roland Junos. I've got one, you can't see, it's just out of shop, but in like a 1981 Roland Juno. It's a big part of my sound. And so I've always used a lot of Roland stuff and like Roland drum machines and everything. And they cottoned onto this and sent me a bunch of stuff, and in return I talked about it on like their YouTube channel and everything, which was amazing. But anyway, this is a long way of saying I don't buy anything because it's a trap. It's just a trap unless there's something you really need. But if you want to give someone a gift card, like someone gave me a gift card for my birthday, for sure. I bought a Reverb, but you got to be careful. It's everything. Everything is designed to strategically suck money out of this, and it's hard because life is like really expensive anyway. And as a musician, it's like, when are you fucking going to see a return on that investment? You got to be careful about what you spend. Can very quickly become really expensive to make music. And there's someone willing to take your money at every turn. Yeah.
We've been trying our best to mention Rode as often as possible because we use their Rodecasters, we're using the Rode pod mics, we're the Rode product, but we're yet to be given any freebies. So if anyone from Rode is listening and they would like to send us some, Rodecaster Pro 2 or some more pod mics or something along the lines, we'll be more than happy to accept those gifts.
Put together a little press pack and email them and say, and the worst I can say is no. I've worked in sales as well. It was terrible, but the the message I can give you is like the volume of outreach you need to do before you meet anyone who even wants to talk to you is like absurd. Hundreds and hundreds of emails before, and the tech companies like Rode and stuff, like they're often run by really passionate people who are really invested in what they do, and they don't have a huge margin. Like even a big company like Roland, like they don't have cash to splash. They're not Woolworths. They don't have like shit to, you know. So you've got to be patient with them, but they are very genuine. They tend to be very genuinely passionate. Every time I've gone out to like, went out to like the, telecom, what is it? Whatever. One of these tech companies out there, might have been Rode actually years ago. And it's just a bunch of nerds running it. They fucking love it. But they don't, they don't just hand it out to anyone. You got to prove it. You got to put your case, prove that you're worth it.
But it makes sense because obviously, and I'm sure it was the same with you for Roland, when you're promoting something that you actually like use and really like their product, it's not like it's a sellout type thing. I mean, as artists, like I imagine with artistry so often, and punters will make that kind of accusation, or they've sold out. But if it is a product that you use, a brand that you love, and a brand that's brought you a lot of joy, you're just saying what you would say privately to them publicly. I think that's a beautiful way to actually make these things work for artists and for brands. If you make a good product, let the people who love it promote it and let those people benefit from it as well. Yeah,
I think you touched on something that's like really important generally, the idea of like authenticity and not pursuing anything that not pursuing outcomes or relationships that you wouldn't want anyway. So I'm going to try to tie this into, say, music or the way musicians or artists interact on social media or whatever. There are lots of incentives, apparent incentives to behaving in certain ways. Like if you do the TikTok viral dance, you might get lots of views, and the hope is that then you can leverage those views or leverage that interaction into the thing you really want to do. But I think it might work, but I think it can also be a bit of a trap, because if you become successful doing something you don't want to do, then the only prize is that you have to keep on doing that in order to stay relevant in the way that you've kind of found purchase, or you stop doing it and then you have to start again anyway. And it's kind of a waste of time. So I think authenticity, whether you're talking about brand partnerships for a podcast or as an artist, or authenticity in the kind of art or content that you're making, authenticity in the way that you interact with your audience, authenticity in the kinds of things you're pursuing. Like, it seems really it's really obvious and cliche to say this, but it just makes everything much simpler when you know what you stand for and what you want, and you can be honest about what you actually have to offer and what you're actually interested in doing, and the values that you actually have, and the values of the value that your art is embodying or your content is about. Like, if you can just know that and not bend over backwards and try to be someone else in order to convince them to give you this thing that they have, which isn't really aligned what you have, but you're looking for something to get, it just becomes a real labyrinth, and a really displeasing labyrinth, and that you can get very lost in, and you can lose yourself. And I don't know, it's also hard to create momentum for yourself if you're pursuing things that aren't really, like, it's very hard to build say if you were trying to build a relationship with a company that was not Rode. It's something you didn't really need. Say, you need that microphone. So Rode, just give them the microphone. But say there's some other piece of kit that was very fancy, that gave you a certain a feeling of importance, or the podcast a certain look, but it was not necessarily true to the value of what you're doing. In order to build that relationship, there's a lot of, it can be a slightly dishonest process, a lot of convincing. It's very taxing to do that. But as you say, if like me, you've made no secret of the fact that you love a certain kind of synthesizer for 15 years, and then the company says, would you like to try this? It's like, happily. And if you need me to talk about it, I do that anyway. So just put a camera up, and then it doesn't feel icky because you do this anyway. It feels very much, there's no misalignment. And that misalignment of values, I think, it's real for everyone, not just people making content, but people in their regular job and everything like that. Having to feel like you're being someone else or needing to be someone else in order to get your needs met is very taxing.
And you're an artist who's been around for a long time now. Is this a lesson that you learned the hard way, whether it was a direction that your music was going and you didn't like, it was being pushed one way, but you wanted to make music that was more this way? Is it, a brand deal or something along those lines? Like, did you have to learn that lesson the hard way? Have you always sort of had that mentality around it?
In the very, very beginning, when I first signed to a record label, and we might have talked about this last time, but I was really young, so I had really no way to orient myself in the industry, and even though by the time I got signed, I think I was 24 or 25, and I'd been making music since I was in high school. So for me, that felt like an eternity. Like, I should really know who I am and what I'm doing. But it's actually really still early on, and was only on my journey, and still that's early on for a lot of people. 24-year-olds think they're supposed to have it all figured out. You think like by 24, 25, you're meant to know exactly what you stand for and where you're going and everything. But it's impossible because it's the age is an irrelevance. It's more about the depth and breadth of experiences you've had, the contrast of experiences, the number of failures you've managed to withstand, the number of situations you've been in where you've worked out, this isn't who I am. Not just in the industry, but say, romantic relationships is a really good example. You kind of like, you have your first love fail, and it's like a real big eye opener for a 20-something to go, I wasn't being myself. Or you need a lot of those professionally, personally, before you can even begin to have something to reflect on to answer some of these questions. So when I signed to my label, 24, 25, the industry was totally different. TV, radio, all that sort of stuff still held a lot of power. Those were the real gatekeepers.
Because we're talking 15 odd years ago?
Yeah, I think so. I'm thinking like 2009, I think. Yeah, something like that. That's, yeah.
You're making me do math, but let's go 15.
Yeah. The maths is irrelevant. This is an entirely symbolic story, so don't get caught on numbers. But it was still like, TV and radio, and those kind of gatekeepers held a lot of power. And so there was definitely this sense that if you wanted to have a career, you would need to fit into those formats or be appealing to those people who had a certain medium they worked in. And this before podcasts and things like this kind of conversation was impossible. There was no one radio was going to have. You couldn't speak honestly like this. They would just cut you off, So there was a lot of definitely the beginning of my career of like, how do I act, or where do I go? What do I want to do? What will I do? What won't I do? Who should I talk to? Who should I just be wary of? There's just nowhere to orient yourself until you've had the experiences. But that definitely wore off. And by the time I had my first kind of real creative breakthrough with Fan of Pains, and then Sea of Approval, which was 2014 that it finally came out, my record company kind of realized, he should just do, it's best for us all if he just sort of does his thing and we interfere not too much. But there's still pressures. You're signed to a label because you're trying to, this is sort of the elephant in the room, is if you're signed to a label and you're going down that route, there is in there the presupposition that you want to make this commercially viable. Like, it's a business relationship that you have with these people. So there is an understanding that at some point, probably this has to become worthwhile financially, or you just have to keep on slipping under the radar and having your records paid for with a runoff from a Coldplay album or something like that. But when I left that label, all of that pressure, all of that actual pressure disappeared, but there was still a bit of a hangover in my own mind of this should still be a viable career. I still need to make, because after Secret Approval, I just did music for the first time ever in my life. I just did music for like 2 or 3 years, touring, that sort of thing, shows, opportunities like that. And then I left my label to start a family. I'm just condensing a long story very short, but it seemed like the time to leave, because I knew I was going to start a family. And it didn't make sense to me to like stop music for a couple of years and then come back to the label and go, can I make another record? Just didn't feel right. I knew things moved, people change, and my whole team disappeared in the time that I started a family. People moved on. And so I was right, but it was a really hard decision to make. But then when I left the label, I still felt the pressures of like, I became like my own A&R guy in my head somewhat for a little while. But all that those sorts of pressures have totally disappeared. The industry has completely changed. The old gatekeepers, the old power players, like, they don't have any power anymore. None of that moves the needle. So the idea that you should do anything other than what you firstly you can do and what you really want to do for some like nebulous reward, that's completely evaporated, which is confronting, but also like it also can unlock, if you can accept it, it can unlock a lot of creativity.
Yeah, and it's a product of, I suppose, a lot of the journey of yours that's led to now is the album that we're here to talk about the album, but we know we're going to talk about so much more. And I think the album, from reading your musings and how you've kind of promoted and all of the fascinating postings that have led up to it is very much encompassing of your story. But it is called Collapsing Bliss. It will be out on the 15th of November. It's an album that you made over 40 nights, or I actually wasn't sure of the maths here. You made it over 40 nights, but the whole completion project took about 8 weeks, I think, if I'm reading it right.
Yeah.
And you've written, arranged, performed, recorded, mixed, and mastered every element of it. You've done the artworks and music videos as well. The artwork side of it makes a whole lot more sense now, knowing what your day job is. I wasn't, we didn't quite know that visual art was such a big part of your artistry as well, but it checks out too. And you said that it's the loveliest experience of releasing an album you've ever had. So if you can kind of, cram some of that into a nutshell, please explain. Even that last statement I thought was super interesting. The loveliest experience of releasing an album you've ever had. It is, of course, released independently as well. You haven't been on a label for a couple of albums now, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. So, okay. Yeah, it definitely has been. It's been really lovely. So, like I say, 2014, 15, 16 was real like busy years. I had a major label, offers to do things overseas, that sort of thing. And then I left all of that behind to start a family. I've got 2 children, and that was the right decision. It's a really hard decision. But then I sort of started inching back towards doing some music again, probably around 2018 or so. And I recorded a bunch of music that would become half of an album called People You Love. And I was really proud of that record, and I was really proud of that first half of the album that I made. And I started showing it around to people and getting in contact with all the people, let's say, from like my old life, the people who I knew from labels, independent labels, major labels. And it was kind of brutal. Like, no, there just wasn't any interest from anyone in doing it. They're like, this is great, but we can't do anything with it, or if I even heard back from them. And I was like, well, what are you talking about? Like, the last shows I did, I played to 2,000 people. Like, I sold a 2,000 capacity room. What do you mean you don't want to make a record with me? Like, this isn't nothing. Like, it was kind of like a bit of a bitter pill to swallow. Like, oh yeah, that's years ago. It doesn't matter anymore. And this isn't this Reeves recordings I made weren't like pop, like banging pop songs. They had a slightly different sensibility about them. And I thought, but they're really good. It's funny now because it seems like so obvious. I was like, of course they weren't going to be interested in it. This is nothing like any of what those labels do. So I'm embarrassed to admit that didn't occur to me until I got in contact with them. But then then the pandemic hit, and I was like, man, it's now or never. I don't want to sit on these songs forever. So I put out one of the songs, which is called It's All Connected. And it was just good timing because like it got added to every playlist and it got added to, you know, big radio stations and everything like that. And it kind of did really well. And I was like, and I had some amazing shows off the back of that, just this one song. But I still had this album that I thought people weren't going to be interested in, or I was still waiting for someone to tell me that it was the right thing to do. It's really embarrassing to admit this now. So I just went back to do more work on that album, and I wrote a few more songs. I was still trying to find like another single, because I still, in my mind, was living in 2014 land where you had to have big singles. So I delayed the album like a year, trying to write the follow-up singles. And that was a mistake, because I should have just let myself have the fun of putting out It's All Connected and then just following it up with all these other great songs. They weren't radio singles, but it would have made for a really beautiful experience. Instead, I delayed it and kept on working. And then eventually that album came out in 2022, and it was called People You Love. And it was a mix of the songs I'd recorded from like 2018, 19, and a bunch of new ones that I did. The first half of that album I recorded in a studio with other musicians. It was totally different to the previous record I'd made, Sea of Approval, which was like this, alone in a room making sounds. That had been such a lonely experience and really intense. I was like, I'm never doing that again. So I had, for People You Love, when I started it, and It's All Connected and all that, I had a band. But then when I had to finish that second half, I went back into the studio on my own and kind of like had an opportunity to make peace with the sitting in my studio alone paradigm. It's like, you know, this doesn't have to suck. This doesn't have to feel as pressurized as making Sea of Approval did. This could be fun. Yes, there's no one around me, but I kind of know what I'm doing a bit better now. I know how to think. I know how to manage things a bit better. And it was a kind of a good opportunity to make peace with that. So that album finally came out, 2022. Then I did another EP the next year. It was like a companion piece to People You Love, some leftover songs, some other things. I started to mix and master some of those things because I didn't have the resources to get someone else to finish it. And then I was like, I think I'm done. That's cool. Like, this has been amazing, and I had some great shows, but yeah, the world has changed. I'm not going to rush to do another album. And 2024, this year, rolled around, and I forgot that I had applied for a state grant for a little bit of money to like do PR for a release. Just forgot about it because they were supposed to assess it midway through last year and their assessment was delayed. So I forgot about it. And then the beginning of this year, I just got this email saying, congratulations, your application has been approved. Here's the money. And I was like, shit. So I guess I have to make an album. And because there's the deadline, that was like by the end of this year, because that's what I originally applied for. I was like, crap, like I've just started a new job. I've got 2 kids. I don't have any time for this. Like, how am I supposed to do this record? But I was like, I'm not going to give this money back. I'm not going to go, no, it's, you know what? I've decided not, here, take this money back. That'd be stupid. So I went, okay, how do I make an album as quickly as possible? I don't have the resources to involve anyone else. I don't have money to hire a studio or a mixer or a mastering engineer. How can I do this on my own? Totally on my own. And I've done some mixing and mastering before, but never a whole record. I was like, okay, well, I have to make this simple enough that I can do it really, really quickly. And I have to make it simple enough so that I can handle all the technical aspects of not just writing, recording and producing, but also the stuff that I kind of never really wanted to do before, which is mixing and mastering. And so I gave myself a ridiculous deadline of like, it was like I gave myself 50 or 60 nights, but I got pneumonia halfway through, so I lost 20 nights. So I did it in about 40 nights. And I would go to work, come home, feed the kids, tidy the house, put everyone to sleep, and at about 10 o'clock, come up here to my studio and work till like 1 in the morning, or sometimes 2 in the morning, and then the kids wake up at 6. So it was pretty brutal, but it was the most, like, I've never had an experience like it. I came up, I was like, man, like, don't worry about singles. Don't worry about commercial success. Don't worry about doing anything. Like, here, choose these tools. It's that keyboard. It's that drum machine. It's this mic. Use these things. Improvise a bunch of songs. Also, I'd been doing some live shows where it's just me solo, and I was like, you know what? Actually, I can carry a whole show, just me at a keyboard. It's weird. It doesn't take as much as you think. So I was like, okay, what if I take that? It's that as a model of like the record. It's around songs and voice and keyboard playing and a drum machine. That's like the spine of this record. Like, see if you can turn that into an album. And I came up every day and I would like talk to myself, and I'd say a little prayer, like, I'm here, whatever you got for me, I'll write it down, I'll record it, and that's fine. Whatever you got, I'll just do it. I'm not going to think too hard about it. And every night something came, and drank my chamomile tea till 1 a.m. and just recorded it all. And like, it's really intense, and it's a lot of brain work, and there's still a lot of technical things you got to sort out, and there's technical problems. Like, it is very intense thing. It's not like I just came and swanned in. Like, it's really hard work. And if you look at my folders on my computer, there's like, there's like 100 versions, 100 mixes of every track, as I'm trying to work out how to do this and how this should sound and what this even is. But I moved through it really, really quickly. Pretty much every song was mostly improvised. The lyrics and the playing and the main parts were improvised on the spot. And I would just go, okay, put that down, make a really quick arrangement. I'll come back to it tomorrow. I'm going to move on to the next song for now. Yeah, it was really prolific, and moved really quickly. And I don't know what it was, just the planets were in the right space, or my head was in the right space, or the constraints on the project facilitated a certain way of working. But yeah, I've never had an experience like it, and I've never felt so proud and at peace with a record that I've put together upon finishing it. And because I haven't heard it that many times, when I listen to it, I'm like, oh, wow, that was a great decision. That sounds really amazing. The things that still surprise me, and has a really particular sound that I think I've always wanted but never got to before. And I worked out a lot of the things that I couldn't do, like the mixing and the mastering. I figured out my rules and my approach, and I allowed myself to feel my way through it as much as think my way through it. And then there was an album, and I've been putting it out, and I'm just so happy with conceptually what it is, sonically what it is, lyrically what it is. It's kind of, I feel like I've already won. It's a really weird thing to say, because in some senses, my musical career does not look like much. Maybe, especially not compared to what it did, maybe to some people, like 10 years ago. But I feel like I've made it. Like, it's a really strange thing. I was like, oh, I've made it. No, I've made it. I've made it. I'm the musician. I'm approaching the kind of musician, writer, producer I think I always wanted to be. I did this really fast, totally on my own. I'm really moved by it. I've made it. Like, this is it. This is as good as it gets. Everything after that, everything that I might have been completely concerned with in 2009, how do you look successful? How do you get it? None of that features into this definition of making it.
But this is the crux of like, kind of not the entire album, but there's definitely elements of the album that this comes down to, right? This very same question. The track Big Deal, which is released now, you touch on where you're at a certain stage in your career, which you referenced earlier, the opportunities that were there.
I used to be a big deal. I had my own show reel. I had my own video. I had my own TV show. But now I've no context. But used to look complex. Became shadows on the wall of the cave. Man, I thought I was a new wave. And now I sound like an old guy coming down from a long high. But conspiratorial theories espout. But cosmically burned out. I felt the universe reaching before the sidewalk hit my chin. So this is me reaching out. This is where yesterday came to now. Don't cut me off. Don't write me off.
And we know you went on to turn down some pretty huge offers, step away from music entirely at one point to focus on family, as you said.
Yeah.
and now you're doing it independently. So I was writing down notes in preparation for this, just jotting them down. And what I have there is validity as a creator is defined by what? And I feel like that's kind of where you've landed here. Your validity as a creator and as a creative is defined by your satisfaction with the art you make, and not these kind of, not arbitrary, but these other metrics of success by which we view the world. Is that a fair assessment?
I think so. I think definitely the bit about the metrics is interesting. The more I concern myself with how things look, the more disconnected I feel from the source of inspiration. Like I really think they're just two very different ways of looking at the world, and I don't think they're compatible. Like you have to have both, sure, but I think the part of your brain that worries about what's going to happen with this, will this be successful? How am I going to leverage this into something? I don't think it can work. I don't think it can function at the same time as the part of your brain that's just like spinning around in awe and just capturing ideas. And one of the things that I think defines an artist is that they are making stuff. It's like really normal. And it's like if you're making or even just still interested or excited by it, I think that's as simple as the definition it is. And one of the experiences I had making this record was that I was very excited by just very ordinary things. So just the sound of a keyboard doing not much at all. I don't know. I was like, this is amazing. It's like I was on drugs. I'm not, but I was like, it's like I was high. And I was like, shit, this is the greatest. This is so amazing. Wow. This is so inspiring. But it was just a very ordinary thing. It's not that I have these exceptional new tools, as I was saying. It's not I've got new toys or anything to play with. It's the same old stuff I've always used. But my sensitivity to it was really heightened. It's like being high. It's like you're just staring at a tree thinking, this is absolutely cosmic. I think that is what defines an artist. It's this kind of openness and sensitivity, a receptivity to information and energy. And I think in that sense, anyone can tap into some kind of inner artist. It's by allowing themselves to be receptive, be sensitive, to feel things. I think that's a big part of what being an artist is. I don't know, like in 2024, I don't, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't, like, who thinks this is a career anymore? Like, who thinks this is a job that you can, like, really? Does anyone think that? No, this is a way of life. It's a way of being and thinking. Does anyone think they're going to get rich and famous off music?
I can't imagine.
Or acting, like, surely not. No one can be that silly anymore. I mean, even who thinks they can have a career on TikTok or Instagram? Like, it's just so, I mean, it's played out to me for one, but it also just seems like no one can be that stupid, right? But stupid's harsh, but no one can be that naive anymore, surely. But if you're still willing to do it after that, then, like I say, the second journey can begin. And if you go on that journey, you can do that until the day you die. And you can be an artist in every aspect of your life, in your friendships, in your work. It is all an art, because like I say, being artistic means a receptivity to information and energy, the ability to accommodate that energy and information, make it coherent, and share your understanding as it occurs to you about what you have seen and heard. And an artist is unique not because of the clothes they wear or the affect they put on. An artist, I think, is unique because because we're just one person, we inhabit like a really particular place in space and time. We don't see the whole mountain, we just see one half of it. So you get the information about the mountain and you say back, this is what I see. And people go, wow, that's really amazing that you see that. And hopefully then you inspire the person on the other side of the mountain to call out and go, oh, actually, well, this is what I see. And then you've got the beginning of culture, because you have all these different viewpoints on the thing at which you're looking, expressed generously, straightforwardly, to the point, by people with different vantage points. And you've got then different perspectives and a culture that can be shared. And being an artist is just about being able to be receptive to what it is you're seeing, make it coherent, and say back as clearly as you're able, well, this is what I think I'm seeing from my side of the mountain. And it's as simple as that. It's
like the thing where, if I'm looking from my perspective, I'm saying, well, that's an M, and you're on the other side going, no, that's a W. So we both have our perspectives on what we're seeing. We can both be right, and as long as we can sort of accept that what you're seeing is true and what I'm seeing is true, and we can sort of have a conversation around that. And even better, if I can come around to your perspective and go, actually, no, that is a W. You come around to mine and go, no, that is an M. And then that's how we can sort of hopefully all get along as a society.
It's the parable of a room full of people, a dark room, touching an elephant. One person says, I've got a rope. Another person says, I've got a stump. Other person says, I've got a bag. You know what I mean? It's like, it's the completeness of the picture. So I think a lot of silly arguments occur when you try to demand that people validate your perspective and celebrate you for it, while at the same time maybe judging or condemning someone else's perspective as good or bad.
It's interesting too that you mentioned that no one comes into music to make money. And I think that can be true for pretty much any creative endeavor. You need to have an investment in the work that you're doing. In terms of, you just have to be interested in it. Otherwise, there's just no chance it's going to be successful. But I find it fascinating that kids today, you say, what do you want to do when you grow older? A lot of results are, I want to be a YouTuber. And I don't know whether that's because they see the Mr. Beasts and the PewDiePies and all these, very popular YouTubers and go, they make lots of money, I can make lots of money doing the same thing, or whether they go, no, I want to be creative and sort of make videos and, have fun with it, because that's coming at it from two different perspectives and the outcomes are going to be vastly different. The same thing's in music. If you're in it going, I reckon, I could do half of what Taylor Swift is doing or whoever, I can make a decent penny out of that. But if you're going into it going, I like being creative, I like to express myself in this way, hopefully other people can connect to it as well, then you're likely to have more success and you'll enjoy the process too.
Yeah, I think if you can engage in work that is just fun to do, that just really lights you up, or that you feel sensitive to. Like, for instance, I like the idea of sensitivity because if you're sensitive to the feeling of a soccer ball hitting your boot, you're aware of the angle and the way your foot affects that. Like, if your body's sensitive, you might have the possibility to become an athlete of some kind. If you're sensitive to sound and emotion, maybe you're a musician or something in a domain that refers to those modalities. If you're visually sensitive, you'll end up in a domain that has a visual aspect. So this idea of being sensitive and receptive to information, I think, is really important. So if these kids are excited by these things because it speaks to a sensitivity that they have, something that lights them up, then that's good. They should do that, because by engaging in the work, they'll begin to create a path for their life. It's probably really unlikely that any one thing, particularly the first thing they do, is going to solve all their financial problems or become the career that they will have for the rest of their life. But life is not one about getting to one ledge and then just staying there. It's about every week, every year, you put another foot forward, you find another thread to your rope, you keep going. And the best way to do that is by trying to pursue things that are actually, that speak to your sensitivities and your interests. But once upon a time, people like the rock star idea, because becoming really, really successful at one thing, particularly early on, there's a fantasy attached with it that you'll become so successful for doing this thing that you get to kind of like stop growing. You get to be a child forever. You're so rich that someone else will do your finances for you. You won't have to work a job you don't like. You'll have other people to do all the things you don't like. That's why people sign to record labels, because the label says, we'll take all this off your hands, you know. People get attached to this fantasy of that. They just get to this one point in their life, then that will paper over all the gaps in my self-image that I have. All the ways in which I feel insufficient will be solved by this marker of success. All the practical things I don't want to do, I won't have to worry about saving money because I'll have so much that I could just spend it forever. Like all of these fantasies, I think kids are afraid of adulthood because to be an adult means having a whole bunch of competencies that you just could never have as a child. So you see an adult and they do all of these things that you don't understand, and there's this world of adulthood and the politics and the this and that, the relationships that you just cannot comprehend. So you want to stay a child. You want someone to go, it's okay, little Jimmy, mummy's going to take care of you forever. You never have to get off the tit. Like, I'll take care of you. You never have to leave home and fail and get hurt and have your self-image smashed to pieces. Mummy's going to take care of you. And so you stay in this arrested development by attaching mum or security or whatever it is, or dad or whatever it is, to these little fantasies. But being an artist, being an adult, is about navigating life without relying constantly on some validation or certainty for everything that you do. There is no real certainty. When you feel certainty, it's probably an illusion anyway. Being an adult means going, fuck, I'm going to go out in the world and I'm going to create some certainty myself, for myself and for the people who I'm in charge of taking care of. I'm going to bring out the best in myself and the best in other people with whatever tools I have. But kids love this idea of being a famous YouTuber because it'll just solve all their problems. They get to stay on their computer all day. They'll never have to do the boring adult stuff. They'll never have, like, their relationships will be solved. They'll be attractive to the opposite sex or whoever they want to be attracted to them. They'll be attractive because of these things. But none of those, like 99.999% of those kids aren't going to do it. Like, life, there's been no point in being alive if that were the case. You're here to suffer, you know, and you're here to like work out who you are through the suffering and like create joy out of it.
I'm interested in the sensitivity that you spoke about before and how that may relate to the process that you created Collapse in Bliss with. You said it was almost like the planets aligned for you, and we know from speaking to so many artists that, you know, sometimes they'll be like, yeah, I was banging my head against the desk for 10 days straight and achieved nothing. And other times we'll say, well, I just kind of entered this state and all of a sudden it happened and I wrote a song in half an hour and I had it made in a day or whatever. So do you put that mode that you found yourself in, do you put that down to a heightened sensitivity that allowed your artistry to flow a bit better, or was it chance? Can you put it down to anything, or did literally the stars just align for you and you were able to create an album like this? It feels so good in such a short space of time.
I think it would be silly of me to say that I knew exactly what to do and I could repeat it again. To think that way would be a mistake, and I would quickly find myself humbled by circumstance again if I was like, you know what, this is very easy, I just do the same thing. I don't think it would work. So I'm actually nervous about what do I do next, because this record's done. Like, it's finished. It's like, if I do this again, will I ever get that lucky again? I don't know. But it's about openness and sensitivity. I think it's about doing it regularly in small pieces, knowing when to stop. When you start banging your head against the wall, only because I know this, because I've done it so much, that like, you can bang your head against the wall for years on end with a particular project, and it doesn't really help. And you think it does, and you think if I just keep smashing away at this, an answer will emerge, but it doesn't. The fist that grips the answer just grips tighter the more you try to pull it out, because, of course, you're contending with yourself. The creative process is a mirror of yourself. So the harder you push, in a way, the harder the creative process pushes back. It's kind of like there's some sort of spiritual element to it there. Like, it really is a reflection of where you are. So if you're like, I'm going to conquer you. You're going to do exactly what I tell. Like, I'm going to smash this out. Then the exact same force comes back to you saying the same thing. I'm going to smash you to pieces. I'm going to conquer you. So there is a sense of like, I've done that enough. I know that comes at great expense. I've lost so many songs that way. I've lost so many years that way. So I came to saying like, listen, you do whatever you want to do. I'm here to catch it. If it's not you today, or if it doesn't want to work, like, it's fine. It's like raising a child. It's like, you just be you. I'm here to support. I'm here to support. If you need anything from me, you tell me and I'll do my best. But you are you. I'm going to just let you bloom into whatever you are or aren't. And then it's like, oh, okay. And some things bloomed and other things didn't. Occasionally I found myself working on the same song for days on end. And then I was like, you know what? I can't figure this one out. This is not the time. There's some insight I'm missing, and maybe that insight will come next week or next year. But I'm not going to drill down on this because I know there's more coming. There's more coming to catch. So there's songs from the record that I thought were going to be on, but I just couldn't balance them correctly. So I was like, you know what? I'm not going to rush you onto this record. If you want to come to life, let's touch base again in a few months' time and we'll see. I captured these other ones. These ones come through. All the things that came onto the album were like relatively light touch for the most part. So I think that light touch is really important.
When you say light touch, what are you saying there?
As in, I didn't think very, very hard about how to make certain, like, I didn't judge it, I suppose. I had to think about it. It's a really difficult thing to say. I still had to think about, like, how do I balance this sonically? There's a mix thing here. I don't know what it is. Like, I did have to think about it, but I just don't know how to describe it. It was just like, it came, I facilitated it. I didn't do 40,000 complete redesigns of the song.
You weren't too heavy-handed in the way it was produced, I guess, ultimately. It was just what came, and what it turned out to be is sort of, it happened a bit more naturally than you trying to force it or push it to be into this box or to fit this mold. Is that accurate?
There was less time spent going like, how do I make it, like, this isn't working, like pulling all the levers. There's still a bit of that with every release, but yeah. All I can say is I got to the end of recording them feeling like they were still pretty new songs. And most of them were written really quickly. Like pushing my daughter on a swing one day, and all of Give and Take, the lyric came. And I was just like, oh, that's it there. Came home and recorded. Like, that song took 4 hours all up. That's one of the best things I've ever done, I think, in my opinion.
Things are always give and take. Things are always give and take. Things are always give and take. My mind. How to create a feeling of a sanctified place. We don't have the time.
And that happened a lot, you know. When I first started self-producing, I Talk Too Much took me 5 weeks to produce, as I worked out, like, how do you get these keyboard parts to talk to one another? How do you do this? How do you get that sound right? Like, that took me forever, 5 weeks on one song, first song I self-produced, you know. So that's what a heavy touch can look like.
I'm interested too. You mentioned before that you don't know, I guess where the next album might lead, but then you also said that the album that's coming out on the 15th, you weren't actually intending on doing. It was only because you forgot that you applied for a grant that you've gone, okay, I guess I got to make an album. So has going about the process in this way, by being completely self-produced, doing all the elements yourself, has that sort of re-energized you and sort of got you enthusiastic about making music again? Or is there still the potential that this album could be the last one for at least a little while?
Yeah, I think I'm just going to await instructions, as it were. So this album was circumstances told me to do it. And when I came up to the room, music was there waiting. And that's how I will proceed cautiously, like make myself, like let, the creative spirits know I'm available and continue to play. And like I say, I've got these new toys I kind of want to play with. It's really hard to, I don't know. I just know if I say anything, it'll be wrong. Like if I go, look, I'm just going to wait for inspiration, maybe another record will never be made. Like I'm just going to wait for the universe to tell me, like maybe the lesson this time is, hey, set a deadline, go for it. Like I don't know what the message is. You just never get it right ahead of time. Every time you think you know what the message is, every time you think you've figured anything out, you're just wrong. You're so wrong. So I think I'm smart enough to know that I'm not that smart. I like the idea of, I love making music. I've never enjoyed it so much. It's really intense. Like I say, I got pneumonia because I was on like 4 hours sleep a night in the middle of winter for like 4 weeks.
That'll do it.
So it comes at a cost, and pneumonia was going around, so it can come at a cost. So I'm a little bit anxious about having to do that again. But it's been the best thing I've done this year. Like it's been such a beautiful, meaningful experience that I'm just gonna let the gods know that I'm available. Like I'm open to the idea and toy around with things. Yeah, I just don't want to jinx myself. Like I say, it was such an unbelievable experience, and I was alone the whole time. Like no one was here with me. I didn't feel lonely. I felt like I had a lot of company in a weird way, and I don't want to sever those relationships by. I don't want to tell the gods what's up. So I'm like very superstitious about it. but like yeah, if I'd like to. I'm open to it, but I'm not going to try to plan the future.
Yeah, no, it's good to know that you're still, I guess, interested and still have that desire to continue making music. It's not, all right, I've done it for 15 years. I've had a run. I'm just going to, put all this on hold and just focus on the more artistic and, your new job and the family. It's still, you still have the desire to make more music, which is, I think really exciting for not just, your fans, but I think more broadly as well, people within the industry, because you have so much knowledge and a lot of experience that I think it's, it's not worthwhile. That's not the word I'm looking for, but I think everyone can benefit from your years of experience and knowledge.
Well, one thing, thank you for saying that. One thing I would like to, one thing I hope I'm able to do, the effect that any of this might have on anyone that could be positive would be just to inspire or encourage, encourage other people to begin on whatever journey, pursue whatever interest like they have, acknowledge the things that make them feel like even getting up in the morning. It's really hard to live without a sense of excitement and purpose. It's really hard to live without a feeling of connection to life, like a genuine interface with life where insight occurs and inspiration happens in all domains of your life, friendships, health, art. If you feel like there's no message coming through, that the world around you is not talking to you, it's a really hard, depressing way to live. And I don't mean that in any glib way. Like I mean it in a really serious way. Like it's quite it's like an existential threat, feeling like you have no connection to whatever the fuck this is, and you are alone adrift fighting for your corner of turf in the world. It's a really hard, sad, empty way to live. So I hope that if any of this is inspiring, even to just a small handful of people, it's like, hey, you've got a way in. There are voices talking to you, and it doesn't have to be as complicated as maybe you're making it. Like whatever the thing is that's stopping you, fear of judgment, perfectionism, this idea I don't have enough plugins, I'll wait till Black Friday before I start my record, or whatever it is, or your podcast, or I'm not going to paint because of X, Y, Z, or I'm not going to do this. It's like, No, just start like with what you have now. It's everything you need. You probably have within arm's reach. Start roughly, poorly. Make it your business to do things as badly as possible and as quickly as possible, but just do it regularly. I'm like this. I try to teach myself languages. I got a couple of languages on the go, and it's like, no, I'm not fluent in any of them, but every day I just do a little lesson, learn a few more words. I talk to myself in the language a bit. It's like I just keep doing what I can with the resources I have. Whatever it is in your life, you don't have to become a professional YouTuber. You could just become someone who puts videos on YouTube that you really like. And for a long time, it might only matter to a small handful of family and friends, but that is worth more than you know. And the effect that you are having on the people around you by doing the thing you love with love and generosity, it's not nothing. I don't like the fact that everything we do in society is always eventually measured by one metric, and that's money. Money is a really useful metric, but if you boil every value, love, curiosity, history, tenderness, connection, if you boil everything down into one metric, then you strip life of all its meaning. Because if you want to make money, rob someone. Like if really we're just about having money, just do what, like strip nature of its resources, strip people of their resources, do what, if money is the ultimate value, go and destroy everything and get rich. But it's not. There's all of this other value that makes life and relationships actually worth enduring. Do the things you love with what you have, simply, roughly, poorly, but do them, and you will actually add value and a depth of experience to your own life that you would not trade for $1 billion. Truly, like I think about the friendships I have. It's like, how do you put a dollar value on friendships? If you said to me, listen, you could have $10 billion, but you will never speak to these people again. In fact, they'll all die. It's like, well, no, of course you wouldn't, because it's worth so much more than $1 billion. So for whatever it is that you're pursuing, it's probably worth more than $1 billion, but you got to start it. You got to just go and do it and enjoy the interface you have with the world.
These reflections, and we've seen a lot of them play out in really fascinating and insightful ways, not only on this here podcast, but also on your Instagram, where you've been kind of publishing your musings. You mentioned or hinted at writing a memoir. Is that actually happening, or is the memoir what we've been seeing and hearing?
No, I started writing. Again, it was just like a notion to start writing. And I just kept writing. So I've got thousands and thousands and thousands of words. I think I've written probably 2 chapters of something. If it coalesces into something, then that would be cool. But yeah, that's giving me a lot of joy. But it's less of a ramble than this. It's a bit more refined. But yeah, no, that's something I'm working on. So hopefully, I don't know, we'll see in the next, it might take years to do, but I have written thousands of words so far, like maybe 10 or 15,000 words so far. I don't know how many go into a book, but yeah, once you start, this is the thing, once you start reflecting what you've got and you start saying matter of factly, you see so much in your experiences that you thought were really ho-hum. And a lot of things I thought were just sort of like throwaway experiences or stepping stones on the way to some greater experience, or like contain like some real pathos, little those moments of youth or whatever that seemed like, I don't know, you sort of took them for granted, or things that happened, or people. There's actually a lot in those experiences if you can, like I say, just say what you see clearly. That's been really inspiring. So maybe.
I'm also interested in like the fact that these have played out over sites like Instagram and social media generally.
Yeah.
From speaking to you and seeing kind of, there is definitely a discomfort and a tension between what is expected of an artist in 2024, social media generally, what you're trying to convey, all of those things. I mean, you still do have to play the game to an extent. I think in our last conversation, you spoke about if you're an artist for long enough, you're going to have to confront these questions that, ideals will get you to a point, but there's also things you kind of have to do. And we've spoken to a lot of artists about that. The self-promotion thing and the promotion generally is often feels like oil and water mixing when it's an artist trying to do it. So how have you found doing that? Because the way that you have presented yourself recently online is through this kind of insight, this unorthodox way, these stories, these reflections, and then intertwined throughout that, oh yeah, I'm also doing this album, which all of this relates to, but all of it can exist independent of the album too. So how are you reflecting on your place within that kind of ecosystem and the necessity of an artist versus your own kind of tensions and issues with the process?
Well, that's a really good question. I think that actually as an artist, yes, there are things you will have to do that you might not love. But my hypothesis is that that's part of it is way, way, way smaller than you think. And there may be things you need to do and concessions you need to make. But most people look at the pie chart of cultural offerings they need to make and they're like, it's 90% shit I don't want to do that'll enable the 10% I do want to do. I reckon, mate, it's more like 5% stuff that you don't want to do. There's no the prize for doing the stuff you don't want to do is so small. You know what I mean? Like acting a certain way, posting a certain thing, the conversion rate in just purely sales terms, the conversion rate of like you do that dumb little dance, whatever it is, the equivalent of your dumb little dance, like mate's fucking bees stick of a difference. Like truly, it's not gonna. People think I've got to do that because that's going to be my big sale. It's not. No one gives a shit. Do the thing you really want to do. And so for me, it was like, oh, Instagram is like a picture. It's picture and videos, and people are trying to use it to be more like TikTok. So it's all the content, high editing and stuff. And at first I thought, oh, that's kind of cool. But I thought, man, I don't care. Like I'm going to use Instagram for posting text. So I was like, my posts are all going to be like 90% now. They're just going to be text boxes because I could do that all day. Like that I could happily do every day. Tell a little story, a little joke, an anecdote, something. Text box. It's like, yeah, it's not what Instagram is made for. But who cares? Like there's no prize for doing what it's made for. No prize that you really want to get. Like I say, you do something that triggers the algorithm, your prize is that you have to keep doing that. It's like, and if it's something you don't want to do, what kind of prize is that? I'd rather have a small following of people who actually I really like and really like talking to, which is the majority of people who interact with me there. It's like I know a lot of them personally, and then a great many more I know parasocially, and they're funny too. Like they're funny and smart, and like they're the kind of people I probably would want to know in person. And like these posts are for me and for them. Like we're the audience, not some abstract audience. Like there's no prize for that. So for artists, it's like, well, do whatever you want, mate. No one gives a shit. You do your dance, see how that goes. Post the thing you want to dance, see how that goes. None of it's going to do well. None of it's going to break you. None of it's going to turn you into a star. I mean, that's all out of your hands. Why do you care? Do the thing that you like. If you like doing the dance, like dance till the cows come home. Do that every day. But if it's not you, don't do it. The part that you think you have to do that you're making out to be big, it's like this big occasionally when you want to sell tickets to a show, which is something you want to do anyway because you want to play the show and it's great when people come, or you want them to hear your album because you love sharing it. Like, I don't know. That's been my philosophy. But then again, like, if you're listening to this and you're like, I don't want anything that guy has, then don't listen to me. Like, find someone who has what you want. Do what they do. Yeah, but I decided, like, I don't want any of this stuff. I don't give a shit. It's fucking meaningless, but this is fun. Type, put that up. That's fun for me. I'll do that every day for now until I don't want to anymore, and then I'll stop.
And is that also partly why your profile picture on Instagram is an old school photo? Is it you in the photo? It's an old school photo of you?
Yeah, it's my Year 12 school photo. So I use that as the artwork for all the singles from this album. I just thought it was really funny. But also as well, I liked it because some of the lyrics on this album are they are ironically addressing ideas that kid had. Like when I started making all this music, you know, I was 18 and I wanted to go out and do this and that. My idea of what the future looked like was invented in that 18-year-old boy's head. And that the inertia of that propels you a long time. And you have to unpack that throughout your life and go, oh, hang on. I'm making decisions based on the preferences of an 18-year-old me who really, his life doesn't look a lot like mine does, you know, who needed all these things that I don't want to need anymore, who acted in ways I will be embarrassed to act in now. So I have a lot of affection for that kid because there's many great things about it, but it was also like, a lot of the ideas and the music address the ideas that kid had. So that's why I put that there. I was like, here you go, buddy. Like, here, you're on an album cover now. You know, you got there. Yeah.
And quickly on the social media stuff too, I saw Thelma Plum shared on her stories and saying, you know, hi, I just want to let everyone know I'm a fan of Andy Bull. I imagine, you know, you said that you've sort of had this indifferent relationship with a lot of the industry and with music as a whole, to have, you know, some of your peers and some of the most renowned artists in the country sharing things like that. It must sort of be really rewarding and also, I don't know, just a really cool experience.
It's lovely because they're my peers. They're my friends. They're not an abstract, like an abstracted concept. They're people who are on the same journey. You know what I mean? Like, they're doing their own thing. They've had to go through a lot of stuff themselves. You know, Thelly's had massive ups and downs and lots of challenges. Though I met Thelma when she was just starting. You know, and we did some stuff together. It's like the journey she's been on has been huge. Like she's, you know, so when people who you like as people first and foremost, but also maybe respect as artists, so fans, that's lovely. But friendship is the real thing rather than fandom. I like these people as people, and I hope I have a lot of goodwill towards them. So if it's beautiful. It's like saying to your friend, "Oh, I love you, man." That's how it feels, you know. It's like, yeah, I love you too. It's really nice. So that's awesome. It's a joy, and when people do that, it's a lovely surprise because, again, on social media, it can feel like a lot of self-promotion, and you have to use up every bit of bandwidth to tell people about what you're doing. So I really like to, when I'm able to share the music or the work of people I know, and I'm really touched when people do the same, because, like I say, it can feel like self-promotion channels, but when you stick your neck out and go, look at what this person's doing, I just think that's the coolest, you know.
Yeah, and we can cue more of that coming November 15, but there are 3 singles out from it now. Give and Take is one of them, and you mentioned it earlier. I think it's a really compelling track. It's, the way it's produced, and especially, you know, having more of the insight into it now, it is a very compelling track. And you said it included a covert recording from a school choir, which I'm very interested in. And as to, is it the I don't even what's it called, that key organ, that organ kind of sound that's in the background that pushes and pulls, is that it, or is there more?
Yeah, so that's it. So that photo of me at school, at that time I was in a school choir and we sang church music, and it, like, amazing music that one of the sad things, like, I was pretty happy to leave school, but one of the things I was sad about was like, I'm never going to sing in this choir again. We sang a lot of church stuff, a lot of religious stuff, a lot of Church of England kind of music. And we had this organ at school and a really good choir. And I was in that choir forever. And we had a really amazing choir director named Meg Matthews. She was legit. She was a really good teacher and an amazing organist as well. And being in the choir is like it's just the least cool thing you can do at school. It's so uncool. And it was back when I was at school. Like, it was a subject generally of ridicule. But how do I put this? Let's just say I was of the standing This sounds like a big note myself. I was of the standing in the playground that it was never an issue for me to be in the choir. Let's just say that. So it was never. I never had any conflict about it. I didn't feel nerdy or used to be called all kinds of slurs. Some kids, but I thankfully escaped all that. I just got to enjoy all this amazing music. I loved it. My brother was a musician. He was a few years ahead of me. I have two brothers, and he had a mini disc player. He wasn't at school at the time. Obviously, he'd left school, but I had this mini disc player, and I took it in to a rehearsal when we were singing a song with a nearby girls' school. So it was quite a big choir, female, male voices, and I recorded in stereo onto this mini disc player of my brother's. And I don't know, I guess at some point I must have put that recording onto a WAV file on my computer, and it's just made its way through computers for the last 20 years. And I opened it, I was like, what's this? And I was like, oh, it's a recording from the school choir. I was like, wow, this sounds really good. And much better than I thought we sound. Like, I thought we were good, but you could look back and go, we weren't really that good, but it was like really good. And so I found a section of the recording and I chopped it up and I filtered it. So I rolled off all the high end. So it's really muted. You can't really tell that it's voices. And I just repeated these two sections back and forth. Kind of there's like an in-breath and an out-breath. It's just two chords, and there's slightly unusual voicings of chords from an arrangement of a song, like a church song called All Through the Night. And I just put this, I was like, this is really magical. Put that in across 3 minutes. I put some synth bass underneath it. And I was like, that sounds like it's something. I'm going to stop the arrangement here. That's kind of what it is. Initially, I tried some percussion. I was like, no, it doesn't. That's you just gilding the lily. So that sounds pretty good. And then, like I said, I took my daughter to the park and the music was still playing in my mind. And all the lyrics and the melody came down. I was like, wow, that'll do it, I think. And I came home and I recorded it. And then all I did after that was I wrote some string parts. And it happened so quickly, I don't really remember doing it. I wrote some string and some horn parts, played them in, little tiny synth line, delicate line as the song fades out, sang the song, did some harmonies, mixed it, that was it. But that main sonic thing, that big pad of noise, that's actually me singing in the choir just with a filter over it.
Wow.
That's so cool.
Yeah. Man, and I was like, if you had told me that day in 2024 in the future that this was going to be on a record and that it was going to be on like this thing called a streaming service and it was going to be on this big pop playlist, it's like none of it would have even made sense to me. But
and your face as it is now in year 12 will be as part of that single cover. That's cool.
That's it.
The album Collapse in Bliss, it is out on the 15th of November. We've been lucky enough, obviously, to get an advanced stream of it. And it's an album that, you're not going to play before your grand final to pump you up, but it is an album that is perfect.
What do you mean? What are you trying to say, Cam?
So it's an album which is perfect for putting on noise cancelling headphones and then sitting in your room, going for a walk, doing whatever. But it's like a perfect, not escape from the world, but I think, having, this conversation with you today and, learning a lot more about how the album was made, I think it perfectly encapsulates, the way that the album has eventually been produced and just the experience of putting on headphones and sort of not distancing yourself from the world, but almost like you can take a step back and watch the world go by. I feel like the album is perfect for that. Thanks,
man. Well, I was saying about being in the choir and I would have many experiences sitting up there in the gallery, singing this beautiful organ music. And the synthesizer really isn't that far from an organ. And the church would be like filled with these harmonies and this sound and these arrangements that someone had written that we were singing. And like moments where it's a really kind of a profound and deep experience, and the hair stands up on the back of your neck. And I think I've just been trying to go for, like, in my heart, I've just been trying to recreate that feeling of being in church in some way. So this is the closest to a religious album I'll ever get. But definitely for me, like, that's the synth is my organ, and this is my these are my religious songs, I suppose. But yeah, that feeling of like, it's just purely about a release of tension, kind of a healing, a soft experience. Yeah, I think that's what I'm going. That's what my heart wants. So I think that's why the album sounds the way it does.
Yeah, and I would echo what Cam said, and it's very much, I mean, it's still got those beautiful, amazing pop hooks and sensibilities that you have been so good in your career creating, but it's got this kind of, I don't know, as Cam said, this immersive calmness in it. And I suppose, I mean, from hearing what you're saying and what you said about the album in a world where we're just like bang, 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 next song, single, here, there, this is a body of work that you do want to put those noise cancelling headphones on, and you do want to listen to in full, and you do want to return to, and it does make you feel. And you've been doing a lot of feeling and thinking and reflecting, which, I mean, yeah, again, all comes out in this album. So we've had a lucky experience in being able to listen to it early, but yes, it is due out on the 15th of November. And yeah, there's 3 singles out at time of recording now. Check them all out, but listen to the full thing. Get those noise cancelling earphones out and experience it. And listen to this chat first, because I think the context is amazing. I mean, we pieced together what we could have in our preparation, and having read your posts over the last few months, which have been super insightful, but it is really good to have it all fleshed out in this way. And Andy, we wish you nothing but success for the release.
Thanks so much, guys. It's really lovely to be able to catch up with you again here in the future. And thank you for letting me kind of take the rope and run with it. And yeah, I know I talk slowly and a lot, but it's a joy to be able to kind of share some of this experience with you guys. And I guess I'll catch you at the next record.
Yeah, well, we can't wait for that. Hopefully there's another grant coming your way as well to help.
Or a sign.
Fund a lot of it. Yeah. But thanks so much for taking the time and chatting to us. As always, we love your insight and knowledge behind so much of this. I feel like I gain 5,000 IQ points after chatting to you, because you're just so full of knowledge and
better go and get smashed, mate. Go fix that up. Go drink a slab, sort it out. Yeah.
Thank you for bringing me back down. Hopefully the rest of, this is being recorded before Halloween. It will be released after Halloween, so this part might be a little bit dated, but hopefully Halloween goes well, and your 7-year-old kids can, enjoy the Halloween without you having to chase thousands of people off your front doorstep.
I'm just gonna punish them by putting up the Christmas decorations and making them listen to Church of England music, mate. Don't worry.
That'll just confuse. Everyone's got the Halloween out, and you got Christmas lights all over the joint. You've got Santa Claus stuck out of your chimney, etc. Yeah, just confuse.
Yeah, being an iconoclastic artist, by just going against the grain.
Anti-establishment. I love it. This episode of Home Brewed, the amazing episode that it was produced by my good friend Eamon Snow. It was recorded on Darkingjung Land. And for more from us, head to www.homebrewed.au.